appointed for the kingdom, since my life He controls, since I gave my heart to Jesus, the longer I serve Him, the sweeter He grows. The longer I serve Him, the sweeter He grows. The more that I love Him, more love He bestows. Each day is like heaven, my heart overflows. The longer I serve Him, the sweeter He grows. Every need He is supplying, plenteous grace He bestows. Every day my way gets brighter, the longer I serve Him, the sweeter He grows. The longer I serve Him, the sweeter He grows. The more that I love Him, more love He bestows. Each day is like heaven, my heart overflows. The longer I serve Him, the sweeter He grows. Each day is like heaven, my heart overflows. The longer I serve Him, the sweeter He grows.
All right, Galatians chapter number 5 is where we'll begin, but before we read that, that's just the first text that we're going to look at. We're going to look at several, but I want to go back to the Declaration of Independence for just a moment, and we took our Sunday school class last Sunday morning. And we read through the Declaration of Independence, made a few comments here and there. That was on the 4th of July. And I want to go back to that just for a moment. Very familiar line in this, and then this is where we're getting our subject for tonight and possibly the next few nights, next few Wednesdays. We'll see. But in the beginning of the Declaration, it's the second paragraph. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are the three unalienable rights, not the only ones. These are among these unalienable rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But those are the three that are specifically mentioned, and those are three significant ones: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Everybody has the right to life. I know this is not the Constitution. This is a declaration. But it's interesting that politicians or lawyers, judges, whoever, can find in the Constitution a right to death, as in a right to abortion, which is death of a baby, but they can't find a right to life. And this, again, this is not the Constitution, this is a declaration, but it is a significant document. And the right to life is the single most basic, unalienable right that is endowed upon us by our Creator, simply the right to life. Without the right to life, no other right matters. You don't even have the right to live. But the right to life, once a person has the right to life, then of necessity there must be the right to liberty. Remember, our definition of liberty is simply the opportunity to be responsible for your own life. You have the right to life, you have the right to your own life, and you have the responsibility to be responsible for your own life. That's what liberty is. And then with life, your own life, the responsibility for your own life, you have an unalienable right to for the pursuit of happiness. For you to have life, and a good life, and a meaningful life, you need the opportunity, liberty, to be responsible for your own life. And that means you have your own personal pursuit of happiness. Now stay with me here. We're not going off on some weird track here. Stay with me. The pursuit of happiness. You notice, again, here's where your grammar knowledge comes in. The rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit. You have the right to live, you have the right to liberty, and you have the right to pursue. To go after what it takes for you to have the life that you want to have, the pursuit of it. You can do what you have the responsibility for it, and you have the liberty to pursue it, to do it. And happiness is not the unalienable right. The pursuit of it is. See it? That's the wording of it. And by the way, just for the record, grammatically, happiness is not the right. Happiness is the object of a preposition, if you wanted that. And objects of a preposition, here you go. You want to criticize our founding documents? It's not our founding documents, it's the English language. Objects of prepositions are very discriminated against. They don't get to do anything but be the object of a preposition. They can't be a subject. They can be the object of a preposition. That's all. And that's what happiness is. Pursuit is the right. All righty? And that's important. And a lot of people don't understand that, because and that's the reason a lot of folks are so whiny and gripey and complainy and protesting about everything and demanding everything and feel entitled to everything because it's their right to happiness. The Constitution certainly does not, nor does this declaration statement say or grant, certainly, anybody the right to happiness. You have the right to go after it. But the government doesn't owe it to you. By the way, neither does God, who endowed these rights. If you want a happy life, you have the right to pursue it. And it's your responsibility to do so, to have the life that you want. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is the right. The pursuit of happiness is what I want to talk about. I could talk about the whole thing. I got 6 points, but I got 2 points before I get to point number 1. So I'm still in the introduction here. The pursuit of happiness. What do we mean when we talk about the pursuit of happiness? You can't just, matter of fact, I don't believe anybody can. I don't think anybody can just wake up one morning and say, here's what it's going to take to make me happy. I think the typical person, beginning as a young person, have no idea in the world what makes them happy. They have no idea in the world what they need to pursue to find that happy life that they're looking for, that they really want. I think the idea of being happy is something that's just inborn in people. It's innate in people. It's inbred in people, ingrained in people. People don't do things because it doesn't make them happy. In other words, a little kid doesn't want to obey mom because he wants to do what he wants to do because that makes him happy. He's doing what he wants to do. And so, he doesn't want anybody, not mom, not dad, not sibling, not anybody else. Later on, not teacher. Later on, not policeman, not anybody. They don't want anybody tell them what to do because they think what they're doing makes them happy, and the only way they're going to be happy is to have the freedom to do what they want. But the thing is, it don't make them happy. Or it might make them happy for a little bit. I have noticed this with the arrival of grandchildren. I guess if I think back and look at it, I have noticed it before. I just didn't think about it. Well, with the arrival of grandchildren in the last few years, I have made an observation. By the way, in Proverbs, observation is a pretty good way to learn things. I have learned that what makes, ready for this is deep. What makes a 1-year-old happy doesn't make a 2-year-old happy. You ever notice that? What makes a 2-year-old happy doesn't make a 4-year-old happy. What a 4-year-old enjoys and finds happiness in, a 7-year-old doesn't. Though the 7-year-old did when he was 4, and he found what a 2-year-old was happy about. He was happy about when he was 2, but now that he's 7, so he goes through it. And the fact of the matter is, I see that not just in my grandchildren, I see that in all children. And for the good news of the night, I have yet to see where it ends. It doesn't end when they turn 18. Put that candle number 18 on it. Now I'm not a child anymore, so now I know what makes me happy. They still don't know. That's why you have young people graduate from high school, go off to college, not a clue in the world what they need, what they want. And they'll take some cupcake major. I saw a statistic one day that I found it hard to believe. I still find it hard to believe. On the one hand, on the other hand, I don't. But I think it was something like 84% of college graduates go to work and get a career in something other than what they majored in at college. They enter in thinking, well, this is what I want to do. By the time they get out, I don't want to do that. Either they don't want to or can't, whatever it is. But the point is, what makes a person happy changes. All of your life, it seems like. And you see it in adults too, not just children and not just young people. Sadly, see it in marriages. Today, people get married, and they don't get married with the intent till death do us part. They go into the thing with agreements drawn up. Now, when we end this marriage, then you get this, and I'll get this, and we'll split this, and if there's any kids, we'll do this. And they got all that drawn up before they even get married, a lot of people. They just expect it and assume it, and because they know that while this person makes me happy now, that don't mean once we get used to each other and we get bored with each other, I might need somebody else to make me happy. That's how people go into marriage. And sadly, it affects children too. A huge percentage of abortions are simply convenient. It's not going to make me happy to have to drag a kid around with me everywhere I go, plus pay for it. It's going to mess up my fun lifestyle right now. I'm just not ready for that, so we'll just kill it. Now, that's not the terminology, but that's the practice. People don't know what makes them happy. So when we talk about the pursuit of happiness, the first thing that we got to talk about is a person finding out what in the world it is that will make you happy. And along with that, what does not make you happy. And you know, sometimes that takes years, and frankly, for many people, it takes a lifetime before they can finally figure out all these things. I thought if I had this, I'd be happy. I thought if I could do this, I'd be happy. If I thought I could go here, I'd be happy. If I just had this, I'd be happy. If I just had this amount of money, I'd be happy. If I just had this job here, I'd be happy. If I just went to this church instead of this church, I'd be happy. They're never happy. Or if they are, it's just happy for a little bit until the new wears off. Or if I could just buy this car, man, I'd be happy. Man, that is a nice car. But then pretty soon, it's not new. You're not happy with it. Or you get a bump in it or a scratch in it, and the newness is awful already. You're not happy with it. Buy a new house, new wears off everything. Things don't stay new. And people just do not know what it takes to make them happy. And so there's just an unsettledness in their life because they're just not content. When we talk about happiness, we're talking about things like contentment and satisfaction and peace and things like that. So when we talk about the pursuit of happiness, we're talking first of all about discovering what makes you happy and what does not. And so it includes finding out what happiness is. Galatians chapter 5. I told you to turn there because we're going to read it. Finally, we are. Verse 22 and 23 is what I want you to notice in verse 22 and 23 of Galatians chapter 5. We're talking about, right now, we're getting to the pursuit, but we're talking about pursuing it is discovering what makes you happy and what does not make you happy. And that includes what happiness really is. I would like to suggest to you tonight, this is it, verse 22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such, there is no law. Now, it doesn't say here that all of these 9 things listed, that's what happiness is. But you look up here in verse 19, and you notice the works of the flesh. Many people think this is happiness, or if they would get involved in these types of things, they would be happy. Or sometimes their excuse is, I'm not happy. If I would get involved in some of this stuff, I would probably be happy. But verse 19, now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery. How many people do you think commit adultery because they think, now if I do this, I'm going to be absolutely miserable? Or how many people do you think get involved in it because they think, I am absolutely miserable and this will make me happy? You notice these are kind of grouped together in types. Adultery, fornication, which is the umbrella term for all kinds of sexual immorality and impurity. Uncleanness, lasciviousness, it's a big fancy word just for perversion. All of that kind of stuff. Some people think that's where it's at. Some people think that's where happiness is. Some people think that's love. All of that stuff is a work of the flesh. Ephesians chapter 4 says the flesh is corrupt. And that stuff is corrupt. Ephesians chapter 5 says that we're to walk in love, but fornication and all uncleanness, it's not even to be mentioned. It's not even to be named among you as become a saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient. Those things are not love. A lot of people think it is. I just need somebody to love me. So they go out and commit adultery. The reproach shall not be wiped away. None that go unto her return again, Proverbs chapter 6 says. Her house is the way to hell, Proverbs chapter 7 says. She's cast down, many wounded. Yea, many strong men have been slain by her. Talking about the strange woman. But see, some people honestly think that'll make them happy. It's going to destroy everybody else in their life. But they don't know the one that destroys most is them. But our point is, you have to figure out what makes you happy, what does not make you happy, and to do that, you got to figure out what happiness is. It is not the works of the flesh. The works of the flesh continues in idolatry. That is putting before you anything that you want instead of God. You ever think about that? Anything between you and God. Anything. That would include any one. Here's an interesting question for you in chapter 5 of Galatians, is in verse number 7. The apostle asked the Galatian people, said, you did run well. Notice the question. Who did hinder you that you should not obey the truth? Who did you listen to? Who did you follow? Who did you obey? Instead of obeying the truth. Instead of obeying God. Idolatry. Idolatry, according to Ephesians chapter 5 and Colossians chapter 3, covetousness is idolatry. One thing that's not yours. One thing that you're not supposed to have. Remember commandment number 10, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, and a whole bunch of other things. Covetousness is putting things before God. Anything or anyone. Witchcraft, which is basically disobedience. Rebellion is as a sin of witchcraft, 1 Samuel chapter 15 says. Rebellion is, in the Bible, the opposite of obedience. We like to think, well, it's obedient or disobedient. No, it's obedient or rebellious. Hatred. This is weird. There is, again, observation. I think it's scriptural. And you see it in a lot of people that I can think of. You probably can too if you'd think of it. There is a hatred inside of them. It is a hatred either towards somebody or specifically something they did or said to that person. And there's a hatred inside of them that blinds them, and they are desperate to be happy. Now, they're not aware of that hatred. They would vehemently deny, I don't hate anybody. There's no bitterness in me, not anything at all. I don't have any, I'm not bitter. I am not bitter. I am not bitter. I am not bitter. I don't hate anybody. I don't hate anybody. The one that keeps saying that to, trying to convince is himself. They think in their hatred and their vengeance and their get even and I'll show you and doing things to spite somebody is going to make them happy. But alas, it just keeps burying the bitterness and the hatred deeper and deeper and deeper. And they're not happy. They don't have a clue. They think somebody else's suffering is going to make them happy. And they're going to cause the suffering. See that person that did me wrong. Hatred, variance is going to make that. Variance is simply being out of step. You ever see the military marching in step? That is impressive, isn't it? Marching band. I like marching bands. I like to watch them when they march. You want to see something really, really neat? Go on YouTube and find a video of the Texas A&M marching band at halftime of a football game. That band is impressive. I showed my wife a couple of them the other day. In step, everybody. It's precise, so precise. It's just amazing if you watch the right one. It's not just your typical run-of-the-mill good marching band. This is an over-the-top one. I was very, very impressed. Variance is the person that's always out of step. Always got a better way. No. This is how you do it. No. I'm going to do it this way. They can't just get with the program. Now, I know everybody's got it. You know, you're responsible for your own life, blah, blah, blah. I understand all that. But institutionally, you know, you talk about a church, you talk about a school, you talk about a business. You have to have order. And the person variance is the person that can't just go with the program. Well, I know this is the rule, I know this is how it's supposed to be, but I just want to do it this way. You think it's going to make you happy? It's not. You're out of step. And the list goes on. Emulations, that's the I'm better than you. That's the I'm superior to you. No matter what the situation is, you know, if you're sick, I'm sicker. If you're dumb, I'm dumber. If you're uglier, I'm uglier. If you're cute, I'm cuter. If you're rich, I'm richer. You got a broken arm, I got 2 broken arms. You got 2 broken arms, I got 3 broken arms. It's always, you know, well, that's nothing. You ought to, let me tell you about, you always got a story to top yours. That's emulations. That's we're number one. We're number one. We're not number one. Not supposed to be. Never going to be. Never have been. Emulations. People think that makes them happy. Wrath, that's temper, strife. You get along with nobody. Seditions, that's undercover rebellion sedition, heresies. That says you believe a bunch of junk. Envyings, which is resentment for somebody else's possessions or positions or privileges. It's resentment that they can and you can't, or they have and you don't. Very, very similar to jealousy. Ultimately, it is resentment towards God. By the way, all of these ultimately are sins against God, including the hatred, murders that comes out of the hatred, drunkenness. Drunkenness, that includes not just liquor and alcohol, so you're out of your head, don't even know what you're doing. It means you're just obsessed, can't even think straight. Revelings is the idea that everything has to be a party. That'll be fun. That'll make us happy. People do everything, all kinds of junk, works of the flesh. Most of all of these things are intended to make a person happy. They're trying to find happiness. You want to see somebody who pursued happiness? Go back to Ecclesiastes chapter 2. Ecclesiastes chapter 2. You know what? We're not going to get through these 6 points tonight. You know what else? We're not even going to get to these 6 points tonight. Ecclesiastes chapter 2 is Solomon. In chapter 1, Solomon, the wisest man, he's called the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem, here in chapter 1, verse 1. His conclusion at the beginning is vanity of vanities. Verse 2 of chapter 1 saith the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Chapter 2, he said, I said in my heart, go to now, I will prove thee with mirth, therefore enjoy pleasure. And he said, behold, this also is vanity. You read through chapter 2, we won't take the time to read through the whole chapter. But Solomon said, I want to find out what is really meaningful, what is not empty and vanity. So he says, approve thee with mirth. Mirth is simply merriment. It's happiness. It's party mentality. I'm going to prove you with mirth. I'm going to enjoy pleasure. And so he did. And he said, that's vanity. You know what's funny today is not funny later on. Or what's funny one time or 2 times or 10 times is not funny on 12 times. You know, eventually, you hear the same joke 14 times. It's not funny long about the third one, is it? I said of laughter, it's mad, as in crazy. And of mirth, mirth again is merriment. What does it do? He said this, let me try this. I'll give myself to wine. I lay hold on folly from drinking wine. He said, I made me great works. I built houses, planted vineyards. I made gardens and orchards. I planted trees. I made swimming pools. That wasn't what he made them for, but I'm sure that's probably what he did. Pools of water. I want to water the trees so I can get more wood. He said, I got me servants and maidens, wait on me hand and foot. Had great possessions, great and small cattle. I had more cattle than anybody in Jerusalem. I collected a whole bunch of money, gathered me silver and gold, peculiar treasure of kings of the provinces. You know, he lived in the day before all the technology. You know, you can listen to music on just about anything. You can pull out your phone and listen to music, put in your little ear things, and you can sit there in church and listen to it instead of me. He didn't have all that access to music by any way you want. He just went and hired the musicians himself. I got me men singers, women singers. Delights of the sons of men is musical instruments. All sorts, he said. I got my own band, my own orchestra, my own choir. I got my own singers. I was great, he said. I increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem. Whatever mine eyes desired, he said in verse number 10, I didn't keep it from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor. And this was my portion of all my labor. Now Solomon had the money to do this. He had the authority and the position as king to do this. And he did it. What everybody else would dream about, maybe, he did it. And he said, I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. What in the world is it going to take to make a man happy? People can spend most of their life thinking, if I just had this, if I could just fix this, if I could just change this, if I could just go here, do that, buy that, I'd be happy. And the answer is, no, you won't. So when we talk about the pursuit of happiness, life, liberty, and the pursuit of what happiness really is, it's not in doing all of those things or having all of those things. But we throw in, back to Galatians again, that is all the stuff that the flesh does. But when you consider the fruit of the Spirit is simply the works of the Spirit in contrast to the works of the flesh. The fruit of the Spirit is love and joy and peace. Is that vanity? Is any of that vanity? You read in Proverbs a few times about how much better off a person is if all they got is crackers for supper, but they got love around the supper table. Is that happening? That's set in contrast in Proverbs to people that have big juicy steaks around the table, and everybody sitting around the table is at each other's throat. People are eating each other. Galatians chapter 5 says, devouring one another. If you bite and devour one another, take heed that you be not consumed one another, said here in chapter 5, verse 15. Would you rather sit at the table eating a nice juicy steak, baked potato, and whatever else goes with it? But everybody hates each other. Mom and dad yelling, the kids are yelling, mom and dad yelling at the kids yelling at mom and dad. But boy, we got steak. Or would you rather have a chunk of cheese, sharp knife, and a box of crackers? But man, does everybody in that family love each other. And the conversation is love and joy and peace. There's not a perfect one of them at the table, but there's long suffering, there's gentleness, as in tactfulness and consideration. There's goodness, and there's faith, beginning with dad. There's meekness, as in not a one of them at the table is all about themselves. And there's temperance, which is moderation and self-discipline. It's not a case of mom and dad having to be real heavy-handed to discipline these little brats, because there's self-discipline, temperance. which one of those two scenes do you honestly think would make you happy? Now, I know the answer is, how about big juicy steak with love, joy, peace, and all that kind of stuff? That sounds even gooder, doesn't it? Forget I said anything about grandma. The point is, you got to decide. The pursuit of happiness begins with figuring out what in the world it is. Solomon pursued happiness. It took him a long time. He finally came to the end of Ecclesiastes. Let's hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Let's fear God and keep His commandments. This is the whole duty of man. Do what God says to do. And then, when we talk about the pursuit of happiness, not only do you have to discover what makes you happy and what does not, as in including what is happiness. You don't know what's going to make you happy if you don't even know what happiness is. The second thing is, this is a pursuit. Go after it. Go after it. You can't just sit in your recliner or lounge around on the couch with your remote watching slop operas and think happiness is going to come knocking on your door. And you're just laying there in your jammies at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The doorbell rings and you say, "All right, finally, happiness has arrived. I've been waiting." It comes in a box from Amazon. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. You got to go after it. Go after it. Psalm number 34. The pursuit of happiness means you've got the life, you have the responsibility, you have the opportunity to be responsible, and so the pursuit of it is taking the responsibility. Psalm 34, let's mosey down to verse number 12. Psalm 34:12. What man is he that desireth life? Well, the answer is every one of them. Everybody desires life. Everybody wants life. Everybody wants a good life. You talk to any high school student and say, "What's your plans for the future? What you got in mind? What's your vision? What's your dream? What's your goal? What are you thinking about the future? What would you like?" I'll tell you what I want to go to jail. I want to be 22 years old and have my brain fried. So I have to be led about like a 2-year-old. I have to live in an institution. That's what I want. You don't hear one of them say, "Well, I want to get married as soon as I'm 18, divorced when I'm 19." You don't hear any young lady say, "Well, I want to have 3 kids by the time I'm 22 with 3 different dads, and nobody will support us. We're living on our own. We live in one apartment and get kicked out. Live in another apartment and get kicked out. Can't get child support. Dad's in jail. Dad of this one is in jail. Dad of this one is dead. OD'd. This one got killed in a drunk driving accident. That's the life I want." Anybody ever say that? The answer is no, they don't. Why do they get it then? Are there people that get that kind of life? And the answer is yeah. Why do they get that? But just my lot in life. That's just, some people get it and some people didn't. This stupid government, it's against me. It is not the government's responsibility. It is yours. What man is he that desireth life? Everybody does. And loves many days. This is Psalm 34:12. That he may see good. That the typical high school kid, no matter what his home is like, no matter what his school is like, see better days ahead. He loves many days. As soon as I get out of school, I can move out of this house, and boy, things will start getting good then. Things will get a whole lot better when I get out of this house. Really? Does that ever happen? Might. If you was a betting person, which you're not, I know you're not, would you bet it would happen? You know it's not going to happen. But everybody desires life. They desire a good life, a happy life. And if it's not so that way, they love the fact that it will be. They like to think that's what it's going to have, and if it's not, it's going to be. And he's going to see good. The wife that's getting beat up by her husband every other day, he'll change. He'll get better. Yeah, he'll get more effective at beating is what he'll get. Oh, it'll get better. He'll change. I know he will. Remember Sheffy? That woman with her drunk husband? Remember that? That's one of my favorite scenes. Not the, you know what I'm talking about. Don't want to give it away if you haven't seen it. Out in the woods. Pretty neat. If you haven't seen Sheffy, you need to see Sheffy. What man is he that desires life and loves many days that he may see good? Keep thy tongue from evil, thy lips from speaking guile. This has to do not just with your speech, but the heart that the speech comes from. Did you ever notice that evil speaking people? Evil doesn't mean we're talking about bad subjects. It just means their speech is not right. It might just be griping, complaining, bitter, angry, fault-finding, criticizing everybody, everything. Very critical, bitter. It comes from that kind of heart. So verse 14 says, to the man that desires evil, loves many days, wants to see good. Keep your heart that keeps your tongue. You tell a lot about your heart, mostly about your heart, by your tongue. And then he says, depart from evil, do good. Do right. This is what our liberty is. It's the opportunity to be responsible for our own life. It's an opportunity to be responsible, do what we're supposed to do, which is depart from evil and do good. Seek peace, and notice this, pursue it. Seek peace, pursue it. Go after it. Don't just, again, sit around being lazy, thinking that by some stroke of good luck, don't believe in that, some stroke of good luck, happiness is going to find us. You notice the inalienable right is not life, liberty, and happiness pursuing us. We just hang in there, keep living long enough, happiness is going to catch up to us, it's going to find us. Happiness is not looking for you. You go in the pursuit of happiness. Savvy? Pursue it. Seek peace and pursue it. Now, these verses, 12, 13, and 14, are repeated in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 10 and 11. Just about, almost, pretty close, word for word. Pursue it. In the New Testament, instead of saying pursue, it says ensue. It means the same thing, but it's just a different spelling of the same word. So when we talk about the pursuit of happiness, and this is what we're going to talk about. Now, Ben will be doing your lesson next week while we're enjoying Dr. Bill Rice III at the Bill Rice Ranch on Wednesday night next week, Lord willing. He might talk about, I don't know what he's going to talk. He's on his own. He's got a mind of his own, a relationship with God of his own, and direction of God on his own life. So he can teach whatever he wants to teach. If he wants to teach this, he can. But whether he does or whether he doesn't, like next Wednesday night, we'll start talking about the pursuit of happiness. What is it, if we're going to pursue happiness, what is it that we have to pursue? What do we have to go after? That's what we're going to talk about. And it might be one lesson, it might be in 6 lessons. I say 6, I got 6 points. It might be 10 lessons. Who knows? But anyway, that's your introduction to our series now on the pursuit of happiness. Pursue it. It may take a long time. I would not be one little bit surprised if there's still people in this room still haven't found out what it is. But stick around on Wednesday nights and you will. I will save you years and years and years of experimenting like Solomon did. All right, that's what we're going to study, Lord willing. And I trust it to be very practical and very helpful and useful to you. Let's stand.